Once he says some short, brief introductions. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm Pedro Marquez, Executive Director of the Big Hole Grazing Committee. We'll go this way. Betty Bowler from Butte. Bob Bowler from Butte. Dan Peterson from Hudson. Dean Peterson, Ranch. Big Hole. Jim Payne, Martha Ranch. Corey Warren, George Ranch. J.M. Peck, Ranch from Oro. Jack McGee, guy from Dillon.
Christina Kennedy, FWP Hydro. Perfect timing. Jalen, FWP.
Rachel, Montana.
I'm Pat Fosse with the Southwest Montana Sagebrush Partnership.
I'm Jim Olsen.
Tom Reinhardt, Ranch from Seymour.
Joe Goldman. Luke Lutz, Montana DRC.
Everyone happy with some? So I'm a communication specialist for the Big Hole Watershed County.
On sales expectations, that was the big.
Now, and associate director for the Washington.
All right. Back in the room. Kurt Johnston, Venture, Glenn. Jim Berkey with the Nation Services. Dan High, Big Hole Grazing. Colt High, Big Hole Grazing Association.
Juan Peterson with the Nature Conservancy.
Great. Thanks, everybody. It's good work. We'll start with Luke. Give us the details on water. That's just there. No, so just go, sir. Good to go.
Oh, where's that thing?
Yeah, April snowpack and stream flow report. I will say all these graphs and stuff are from Monday. It's the only time I'd make this, so it's not exactly today's stuff, but it's close. Yeah, go ahead. This is a map of all the DNRC stream gauges on the upper Big Hole. I think I said this a couple times, but we do have a new gauge at Dewey that's not deriving to discharge yet. It's just stage. They can still track whether flows are coming up or down based on stage there. Next one. So as of Monday, snow water equivalent for the Big Hole Basin was at 79% of median. Right around is our median peak snow is around April 17th every year. As of right now, it peaked at March 17th. So about a whole month earlier. We'll kind of see what this storm brings. It's not going to probably give us enough to get up to where we need to be, but hopefully it does help out some. I go on the next slide there. However, our high elevation stuff, like Dark Horse, Mule Creek, they're about slightly above average right now, or slightly above median, excuse me. Calvert Creek was fully melted out as of Monday. Barker Lake's still around 75%. But most of our stuff below 7,000 feet is almost melted out or has melted out already in the basin. Go on the next slide. Our precipitation for the water year is still over 100%. So that's mostly came down as rain and not snow. Yeah, if we go on the next one, we have. So this is the Montana Climate Office. They were saying that on Monday, 68% of normal instead of the 79. So there's some discrepancy there between the National Water Climate Center and Montana Climate Office. The Sipsomisui, for those who don't know, this is kind of like distribution of snow volume based on elevation. So as you can see above that 8,500 foot level, we're still above, or we're right at median for average. And then right around 8,000 and below, we're definitely below median for this time of year. So now we got flows. Most of the gauges are turned on other than Big Hole River near Twin Bridges. Section 1 at the Wisdom USGS gauge, we were sitting around 400 CFS. Like I said, these are on Monday. Most of these flows you'll see are increasing based off of Monday, but right now they're actually stabilizing, up a little bit as of today. On the next slide. This is Dickey Bridge near Wise River. We're sitting just under 1,800 on Monday. CFS. Main Rock, 2,100 CFS. And then Melrose was 2,130 and Glen was 2,090, which is tracked pretty well throughout what we should be seeing, I think, for this time of year. Go on the next one. And then this is the only gauge that was not currently on the USGS site for the Big Hole. It's the Hamilton Ditch. They always start later than all the other gauges anyways. So if you go ahead, this is the NOAA climate outlook. This is a 2-week forecast. Pretty much near normal conditions for this time of year is what they're calling for the next 2 weeks. You know, we're supposed to get snow next week. As of right now, they're asking for snow next week, and then obviously tomorrow as well. And then same with the 3 to 4 monthly outlook. They're calling for equal chances. They just released, I think this was, I want to say the beginning of the month, a new drought conditions forecast to either develop, stagnate, or worsen in most of the West and South Central Plains. This is valid between April and June this year. They're also predicting potentially above average normal temperature for the majority of the U.S. this year. And that's just kind of they're predicting an El Nino emergence in the fall. But like I said, take these with a grain of salt. They change every day, I feel like. Go ahead on the next one. Okay. This is the U.S. Drought Monitor. This really hasn't changed since I think the last time I showed you guys. Just mostly D1 or D0 drought in the upper Big Hole. Other side of the Pioneers, definitely a little bit worse. D2. I think that's probably it.
2021, we were in 2 and 3.
I don't know about 21. A little bit before my time.
I'm sorry, 23.
Oh, 23.
That was in the bad one, right?
24. 24.
Couldn't kind of bad.
23 is like the only decent one we had, I think.
That's right. 23 was okay. But when it was really bad, was it D3? I'm just trying to gauge comparisons. Yeah. Where we were. 21. Okay.
Yeah, I think we've been sitting around that D2 mostly the last couple years. But we are doing a lot better than most other people. So Big Hole's holding snow better than most of the West.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was a little scary to see the West wide.
Yeah, it's
by sub-basin, and the Big Hole at 86% was like looking like the best place to come fish in the West.
It's like
Not suggesting that.
Yeah, any questions or comments?
All right. Make it snow, Luke.
Make it snow, man.
Now I gotta do it. Okay, I'm gonna do mine. Oh shit. Okay. Okay. We'll start with my notes to the quiz. Where in Big Hole is this? And if you paid attention and you've been to these meetings, I have presented this photo. You guess? Oh, shoot, I didn't share on Zoom. Hold on, I'm gonna share on you. Right?
Yeah, mine is just.
Anybody? You got no guesses? 0 guesses? You're one. That's Pettingill. That's Pettingill Creek. The old dam site is right down here. So this is still the backwater that's kind of still there. You can make out the berm right here. Yeah, it's a beautiful place, and the beaver are just on the town up in that system. Quite lovely. Okay. Yeah, where did they go? There should be a little note there saying Pettingill Creek. But anyway, okay. We'll go into what has been on my plate for the month. We're calling it Big Hole Technician Summer. This is the most techs and people we're going to have on the ground that I know of. So we've got Noah, Simon, Cora, and Madeline all employed basically at this point, ready. Nolan's got schedules going out, and these techs will be out surveying high meadow habitats across the Big Hole all summer long. 18th of May. 18th of May. The idea is we'll start at the lower end of the watershed and over the course of the summer work up towards the upper end. And somehow Nolan's figuring out logic to going. We've got them all mapped, right? So it's like where to send them and spend the whole summer just ground truthing places that will be future restoration sites for the low tech, what Laura Zemer likes to call mass distributed storage. I like that term, right? We're doing a little bit of storage across the landscape, not the measurable type of storage where we could pull a lever and know how much we're getting, but general ecological uplift is where we're headed. We've also got Marika Jeffries, who will be driving in from Bellingham, Washington. She's our intern for the Mount Hagen Uplands project work that we have this year. So she'll spend a good part of the summer out of that Mill Creek station on the game range. John Peterson is back monitoring hydrology for us, for irrigators, your neighbors, anyone that would like a more precise idea of what's going in or out of their ditches. John is ready to go. He's trained up on taking stream flow measurements, all private. Keep all that information to yourself. We're just here to help irrigators understand what they're using, what they're leaving, what they're conserving. A lot of this is in the name of, it's all private water rights, but we do get questions and interest and heat from FWP and DNRC on our voluntary conservation. They're always asking how much conservation is happening. If there's water in the river, it's because there's conservation happening by the allocation of water rights, but that's not really a satisfactory answer. So anywhere we can provide data and metrics as to how irrigators are conserving and using and sharing water, it helps us make a case for keeping voluntary drought management as the status, the best thing that we can be doing for water in the Big Hole. So we're excited to have John back and interested also crowdsourcing from you all tributaries of interest, important tributaries for fish. If there's an interest in knowing how much is still coming out of those at different times of the year, we can send him pretty much anywhere in Watershed where there's interest in understanding flows. So we're all ears. We'll be coming up with a game plan for him over the next month or two. Any questions on our tech seller and techs being around? We'll be traveling to back for a second. When we show up to places, it'll be like we exploded in size, like at Folk Fest and things like that. We do have board openings on the governing board. We're looking, we're interested, we're at not a reduced number, but there are openings. So we're in the process of just feeling it out, and folks that are interested, approach us, approach a board member, find out more. So for governing board members, we'll be sending you details on 2 folks that have expressed interest, and we'll kind of do this offline for the moment. Just talk over email about these people, and yeah, and keep good people in mind. The first thing I'd suggest anyone interested, first thing to do is just start showing up. And that's the best way to get to know people, for people to get to know you. Yeah, folks got to be willing to. And we have a great board packet that we put together with a lot of information that would orient somebody interested in the committee, just to kind of know what they're getting into, how we operate, how we make decisions by consensus. We did a staff mini retreat this a couple weeks ago, and that was kind of the first time the 4 of us really sat down for a concentrated period of time to just go over everything, systems. So we really got dialed in on our systems and roles, responsibilities, just getting efficiency, i.e. me learning how to delegate. So that's a big step. I'm adulting slowly, just like getting better, saying no to things and not doing things. There's things that they talk about now that I have no idea what's going on, and that's exactly where I want to be, in a good way. I think you all know what I mean by that. And then on the partnership front, things are really cruising. With the Forest Service, I'll be meeting with folks next week, but just in the matter of a couple days. The forest is reaching out to us. They've got a variety of different things they want to get done and see the benefit of working with us in longer term partnership agreements to get dollars out on the ground and get crews and contractors out on the ground way faster than they can move. So we're looking at developing an agreement there. I'll give governing board all the details of what they're asking. So, there's high meadow sort of storage work, this low tech stuff that we can be doing, but I've heard of conifer thinning and some recreation sort of road decommission stuff might come up as well. So I want to make sure that all of these activities are kind of in line with what you want to see and what we're willing to support. So you guys will get details on that also through email. To me, it's very exciting. These long-term agreements really give us some floor as an organization to run with and allow us to get. I think we can be creative and find efficiencies across agencies and across projects when we have these agreements in place. I just came back from a 2-day meeting of the Montana Beaver Working Group. We've been a coordinating member of that group pretty much since the beginning, developing an action plan for the next 3 years of what this group will do. The group itself does nothing other than bring a bunch of people interested in doing beaver related restoration work across Montana together, sharing information, sharing resources, all of those good things. We've been coordinating the policy and sort of regulatory front. Last year's big accomplishment was the Army Corps of Engineers changed to their nationwide 27. It made it much easier to do this type of project, the red tech stuff. I'll share details of kind of what we're up to. Nothing major. The big thing is FWP is in June going to ask the commission to greenlight the Moose Creek Basin for Montana's first beaver transplant project. We will be taking a beaver out of somewhere. Don't all raise your hand at once. I'm sure we are taking, I think Corey Ritter at FWP is collecting a list of some places that have constant issues with beaver where we could go there and pull them and go them somewhere where they can be more useful, way up in the mountains. So that will happen in June. If we get approval, then we're looking at whatever the timing is that the biologists say is the right timing to go move the beaver, but we've got a site ready. Nolan's been working with the forest on getting all that ready to go, and that'll be very exciting. Getting ready. And Charlie will document the whole thing. Yeah, well, I like being first, so Montana's ready to do its first beaver transplant. So the programmatic EA is public. I think it's open for comment. I believe it's in comment period. Is that right, Jim? Did anyone not know? It's pretty close. If it's not out now, it's pretty darn close. They're learning how they operate as they do this, is all I can say about that. I think the agency has the regulatory authority to create this program. They don't have the approval by the commission to approve the transplant area. That's the approval that they will be seeking, is this Moose Creek area. And that's Forest Service is good with it. Private landowners, ranchers up there are good with it. So could be a slam dunk. I will let the board know. There might be a little push before the commission meeting to get a word in with our commissioners and let them know where we stand on doing this work. I had a good conversation with the DEQ about French Creek. I'm working a lot on this plan, which will guide the direction we go for restoration for the next how many years. The existing plans were finalized in 2012, so they lasted us about 14 years. The last plans highlighted French Creek as our priority, and $11 million plus later, and all the investment from state agencies up there. We're now talking to DEQ. They're going to go back up in September. They're going to resample the whole basin. And we're looking, hopefully, they will find enough evidence that we've done enough that we can delist the entire basin for sediment. That would be a first for Montana as well. So that's where we're headed. It might take time. They might gather their data and say the system just needs to recover a little bit more, but we've been working with them to cite their sampling locations so that it overlaps with where we've done restoration so they can see change. Because otherwise, if they sample somewhere and it doesn't capture anything we've done in the last 12 years, what's the point? They understand that. Again, I feel like they're learning as they go because they've never done this. I got in trouble when I said DQ is not in the business of delisting streams. I had a couple of employees and guess what? So let's go. So we're heading there, which is good. Anyway, it's all partnership. It's all really good. Open lines of communication. next week I'll be at Trout Unlimited is hosting an in-stream flow workshop, talking about all things in-stream flow. That'll be here in Butte. I'll be presenting at that. And then tomorrow, I believe, yeah, we're asking Broksle Ranch Trout Unlimited if they're interested in funding our stream gauges here in the Big Hole. We got the bill from the USGS again, and I like to pass that bill on to other organizations, and we'll see what they say. And then lastly, related to this watershed restoration plan, you'll notice the ring of maps. These are all sub-watersheds of the Big Hole. And what we're inviting folks to do from now, really for the rest of the year, you'll find these little sticky notes. They're on tables around. They're transparent. If there's a spot, we're crowdsourcing where there are impairments, where there are opportunities, where there are places that are absolutely need to be protected. And we're going to try to crowdsource it as much as possible from folks in the room to keep attending. So feel free to grab a sticky note, write a note, put an arrow to a place that deserves our attention. It could end up in our restoration plan as a site to go do some project on. So enhance. Yeah. Restore, enhance, not preserve. But yeah, I'd like to think that a lot of you have some particular spots that you know in the watershed and places that maybe you've seen something that you wish wasn't there, a road crossing that's out of control, or fencing that needs to be put up somewhere to keep cows out of the water, mining degradation, you name it. We can't be everywhere all at once. So hopefully this visual will be consistent with this mapping. And so find your favorite spot and stick some notes on it. And Carly's got a method for capturing all that information and putting it in our plan. All right. That's it for me. Any questions? That's coming on. All right. Dean, you're next.
The steering committee met in March, and we talked about the projects coming up, our financials, looked at our past 3 month financials, and have a good amount of money to work with. So we talked about, I think you only had 3 technicians hired at that point. You hired a 4th one.
Got the 4th one. Yeah.
Our hydrotech John and Nolan went into Moose Creek about 10 days ago, measured 4 different sites.
Yep.
Which restrict your restrictor? No, the one. Yeah. My restrict still does. Yeah. So you're in presentation from Pat Fosse and Colt Dan. I know Colt well, but very fascinating or any of those things. That's all I have.
All right. Super. Thanks. And then who's next? Candidates? Who's next?
I guess I should have asked the other steering committee have any. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
What are we gonna do? I gotta email this thing. We just have to get out of this. No? Nice. You want me to flip through or? Sure.
Next one.
Sure, yeah.
All right, so just an update on the monthly meetings that we have planned for this year. Tonight, of course, we're hearing about flexible grazing. Then in May, we'll hear from Jim Olson, a fishery update. We'll also hear from John Peterson about his work measuring water for conservation. Then in June, we'll hear from Danica Holmes with DNRC about protecting your water rights from abandonment claims. In July, we don't meet, nobody's just too busy. We're still looking for a topic for August, so if there's anything you want to hear about, if anything comes up, please let me know. And then in September, we'll be hearing from Brad Bayless with FWP and our range rider Chet about grizzlies and range riding. And then in October, we'll hear about invasive weeds from Big Hole County and agency representatives. And then in November, we'll hear about the Wisdom Management Aquifer Recharge program from the Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology. Anyway.
That's right. That was the right program.
Oh.
Yeah.
So if you haven't checked it out yet, we now have branded the HWC gear, which is pretty cool. We're adding more stuff all the time. You can find it via our website, bhwc.org. It's also, you can type in bhwc.org/shop. And then the proceeds from all this stuff support our Big Hole Conservation Fund. If there's anything you want to see on there that's not currently on there, just let us know and we can try and add it. Next. All right, and then we had a couple of film screenings one in March and one in April for our new film, Restoring the Headwaters. The March one was in Butte at the Colt High Theater, and there were about 80 attendees. Is that right? Anyway. And then in Dillon, it was at the Patagonia Outlet on April 9th, and there were about 30 attendees. This is a picture of the Dillon event. It was really fun. For those of you who know Jim McGee, we surprised him with I should have put a picture of a plaque on the trailing sculpture we ordered. But it's really cool. He was super surprised and grateful, and it was just a really good time. So he kind of, when he retired, he just snuck off. So it was a fun opportunity to acknowledge him for all the work that he's done over the years. And he's like, pushing a big hole. So I really got to see him.
7.
Oh, I said,
I think it was like 59 people down
Great.
that saw it. It was a group of films on conifer encroachment and this one and barrier fences and oh yeah, I saw the Ruby Water.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I forgot to add that
Well,
one.
you guys did 2 showrooms, right?
Yeah.
Screenings.
Yeah, and I think between them, I think Martin told me there was 59 people that.
Great. Yeah, thanks for doing that. That was great. Got a different audience.
And then Carly is working to get it into another event in September.
It's at the International Wildlife Film Festival on Monday. It's screening 7 p.m. block there if anyone's in Missoula, and I'm doing a Q&A there afterwards. Jim, I'll see you there. Maybe. Sure.
Cool. I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
Carly, do you have anything on that?
I think that covers it. Yeah, we're really happy with it for now at the events. So yeah, thank you everyone who's come to.
And Carly did all the work and stuff together.
What
Yeah.
are you thinking
Great.
digital after, what are you thinking distribution-wise timeline?
Yeah, I think in the fall would be a good time to release it when on our different platforms. Sometimes festivals have a requirement where it can't be released online until it's screened at their festival. So once we go through a few more, then we'll have it available for everyone.
Yeah, nice. Where else are we showing again?
So far, I think Flagstaff Film Festival, and then there were a couple more. I don't remember names.
It was in Wyoming.
Yeah,
Yeah, or some working ranch festival in
yeah.
Wyoming. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, let's get out there.
All right, next. And then wildlife. So I'm really excited to tell you guys about this. We finally got our carcass removal and composting program up and running. This is Eric Lewis, our new compost production coordinator. He's great. He's a super nice guy and he's just been great to work with so far. He's only picked up 10 carcasses so far this year. We're working to get the word out that the program is up and running. So please spread the word. And if you have any livestock carcasses you'd like to get rid of, give Eric a call. You can also give me a call and I can connect you with him. Yeah, and so for those of you who might not be familiar with the program, we send Eric around the Big Hole with his truck and a dump trailer, and then he will meet local ranchers to pick up carcasses, which they load onto the trailer with their heavy equipment, and then he brings them back to our compost site at Site of Wisdom and breaks them down with wood chips donated from Cash Tea, Diamond, Post and Pole, and then water. And then over the course of a couple months, it pretty much breaks down to what you see there. It's basically dirt with some bones in it. And Eric, he's actually been doing some research and thinks if we get the piles a little hotter, that we might actually be able to get the bones to break down more. Yeah, he's excited. All right, next. Then our Range Rider program will be starting June 1st. In the past, we started in July 1st, so we were bumping it up a little earlier this year. Excited to see what Chet can learn getting out there in the allotments before the cattle come out. And, sorry, I should back up. I forget that everybody might not know what I'm talking about here. So our range rider program, employ a range rider for the summers, and he monitors 8 U.S. Forest Service allotments in the upper Big Hole for 7 producers, typically July through September. Now it'll be June through September. And he's looking for livestock condition, carnivore activity, and basically with the hopes of either deterring depredation of livestock or finding injured, sick, or dead livestock, notifying the landowner, the producer, and then the landowner, the producer, and then when appropriate, getting an investigation done so the producer can be reimbursed for their losses if it is a depredation to a wolf or bear, or grizzly bear. And then Chad has been getting involved with some education and outreach with the Western Landowners Alliance, I believe, in the heart of the Rockies. And he actually enjoys doing that stuff, so take him on a little circuit and have him present on various panels down in the Southwest. And then we're also working with FWP and in the Heart of the Rockies Initiative in Beaverhead County to secure the transfer stations, also known as dump sites in Wisdom, Jackson, and Polaris. And they already have lids on them, but basically the lids are going to be automated so that the solid waste department can close them at night, lock them at night, and then they'll also have cameras so they can see if anything's getting in there. Okay. Is anything, any questions?
In September, rain time here,
Yes.
in case you want to hear it, because he's
Yeah.
fast. So,
Alright, so fair. Shane, no one. Extrovert, introvert. What's the parents?
That I had to move around because I get pretty animated, and I know I was not that with through my speech. Well, while she's pulling it up, not a lot of restoration. There's a lot going on right now. It's contracting, planning, not a lot of work in the ground yet, just because it's time of year. And with that, I'm going to go over the different projects and just what we're going to be looking at next, what we're doing. Yeah. That's what I'll talk about when something to look at, right?
So close.
That's right. I'm a visual guy.
There you go.
All right, yeah. Next slide. I could talk about clouds, but okay. So yeah, Campshire Springs, we got a fish habitat project. Jim is really helping us out with that. It's a $303,000 project. We have, I think, 58,000 earmarked. So we got a little ways to go on that. So that's where we're. This is a really important spring. It's going to provide a lot of fisheries for reds and stuff like that for recruitment. So really excited about the project, but chasing down funds right now. All right, next one. And this is just another one, just shown from the site, and then go ahead and go to the next one. I've got 8 different ones that we're going to highlight today. And this one's Smith Sage Springs. This is part phase 2. We're going to reconnect Smith Sage with the North Fork, the Big Hole. We do have contracted out to replace 2 culverts. It's going to be done in October when they shut the ditch down, unless we have a real dry summer. And we might there's a siphon that we're also going to put in. And we're deciding right now if we're going to do it all at the same time, break it into 2. So we're just really awaiting the start date on that one in October. All right, next one.
hey, no,
Yeah.
so you can go over the top. Where is it?
Yeah, so it goes over. So I'm correct.
The beach goes under the
The
spring. So yeah. It's huge. It's a 66 CFS is what it's being sized.
Yeah.
Or laminar. Was that?
That's laminar.
Laminar flow.
That's not full capacity.
Yes. I think. Yeah, that's right.
Where's an engineer when you need him?
The engineers and the hydrologists are gonna make sure we get that part right.
That's right, that's right.
How about that?
Yeah. All right, so again, awaiting start date and working contract bypass. Okay, and then the next one we got, the third restoration project that I'm gonna highlight today, California Gulch. We're waiting the start date, that one's closed, so we're, in fact, before the next meeting, I think that's the 15th. So we're gonna have 3 days on that before the next meeting. So excited. We got things in the hopper. Hopefully I have some photos. We're gonna have the equipment. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I'll just remind you guys of the design. Look at all the work we got up there. So we're gonna have closure pits. We gotta do a lot of in-channel check dams. Clog matrix to stabilize these uplands that really don't have a lot of vegetation on them.
Show the flume on the visual there. You can see the cut.
Right.
So what happened here, this is where the log flume
Oh, yeah.
used to go.
Yeah.
And it took us forever to figure out that the reason this was so hosed is because the logs would back up in the flume and fall 30 feet for 100 years. So
Yeah.
that's why this looks like that.
Yeah, that's funny.
So we're gonna fix it.
Yeah, I didn't really, I haven't seen it on the map.
Yeah, you saw it on the ground. Now you see it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's caused a lot of that erosional action. All right, next slide. Elkhorn, the mine and mill, we're still designing. We're definitely working with contractors. And we're gonna be doing a lot of, coming up, we're gonna start doing some data collection as well. Go ahead and the next one, and I think I showed you a slide of what, this is actually by the adit in a tailings pile. We're gonna be putting some sensing, what do you call them?
Groundwater well,
Groundwater wells, thank you.
deeper than the ones that we have now.
Yeah.
Deeper than the ones we have. Oh, they're only 8 feet or something, but we need to go 20. We need to, there's a need to make sure that we understand that the groundwater that we're gonna treat is really just shallow surface water. That's where the pollution is coming from. We don't want to get to the end of this project and realize that actually groundwater, contaminated groundwater from 20 feet deep is actually the source of the pollution. So we just, Pioneer is gonna go out with a drill rig and 6-inch casing or 4-inch. What do you say?
3-inch, yeah, small.
3-inch pipe, 6-inch casing, 3-inch pipe?
No, it's actually
smaller.
Smaller, like
Okay.
the 1-inch pipe and 3-inch casing.
Yeah.
They want to have a real small footprint. We're really talking about really being sensitive to the
Yeah.
fire up there.
It just seems like one of those, yeah, we should do that. Make sure that what we think is happening is actually the thing that's happening, right? So once we get the dirty dirt out of there, we've gotten the source.
Yeah.
Then we know it's gonna be clean. Yeah.
All right, next one. All right, Lazy Ass Ranch. And this one, we're just awaiting start date and permits. We're getting stuff shipped there right now. This one, we're sourcing a lot of willow. So this should have started last week, but as their willow break is happening, it's driving me crazy. So hopefully next week, or actually the week after, is what we're shooting for now.
Sorry, it's gonna be cold.
Yeah, okay, it's okay, keep reading. Next slide. Yeah, I've talked about Lazy Ash Ranch before. So you can see how, look at how there's non-native grass vegetation. We're gonna do some iron fencing along there. We are also doing fiber closures, plantings, keep those, and encourage native vegetation to come back. We're gonna do a lot of willow trenches in here now, and a lot of willow staging. Willows back. You can see how this is gonna slough off all the soil. It's just putting a lot of sediment in the river.
So you're pulling those back, right?
Yeah, we'll be regrading a lot of these steep banks. Cool. All right, go ahead. Next one. All right, McCartney and Berman Road. So on that one, I'm really excited. We did, what was it, 2 weeks ago, put in 30 Q319 grant. And Eric was there. Thank you, Eric. That was great. So we've got a big project. Really, with this one, we're waiting to figure out what the grant status is on that. But we're gonna be working in these dryland areas that push a lot of sediment into the big hole, the lower big hole. We really gotta sort of noticing those for the health of the river. All right, this is our first stab at it. Go ahead and go to the next one. All that, this, we only got half the images, but those are, I've shown you guys, I think that's like for the sediment. This is, it depends, this could be a deceiving, like this, I don't know what time of year this was, hot water. But there's, you can really see the sediment that's getting pushed in that side channel when you're on site. In fact, there was this much sediment that was pushed onto the road in Addison County. You can see the Burma Road right here. And this is the canyon right here. And it puked out in event 2023. It puked up enough sediment that is waist high across the river. And they just bladed that right across into the channel. And since then, it's eroding right into the river. We're going to address that if hopefully soon when we get funded. All right, next slide.
Oh, there's the picture.
Yeah, and this is down. This is the next drainage down where we ripped that road.
That's the
right
Burma
up.
Road, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a Burma Road. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then the last one we got Upper Moose Creek. Boy, I've talked about that. We've talked about that. But what we're going to be doing that is just remember I said we're working on getting that area all ready for beaver reintroduction. And so with that, we even have a volunteer day. I think it's that June, July 7th. Yeah. There we go. July 7th. So if anybody wants to come up with us, we're going to be putting some exclosures at the culverts at the roads that are really close to reintroduction sites. We just want to preemptively reduce the conflict before it even starts as we work there. All right. I think there might be one more thing, but there might not. Is there any more slides? Oh yeah, there's a couple more.
Yes,
I think my
losing track of them.
I really am. These pioneers, we're expanding, we got a couple of conflict reduction. We need to do a request of quotes and get contracts on that. Actually, with that, it's not on the slide. We just added some exposures around the Seven Springs area, some wild game exposures. Because actually elk, when we went up there, it was wonderful. There was mule deer, whitetail, and elk. It was just and pronghorn. It was just really cool how much wildlife was using those Seven Springs. The problem is the vegetation is really hit hard. Those aspen are really they're dying. So we're going to do some work up there as well. And then Brown's Trib, we're going to be doing some work there in July. All right, next slide. All right. Now, I don't know how I gotta take it. Okay. So somehow I got my slides wrong. I already talked about this. This is really cool. I talked to you guys about doing the explosions I did. So I think we've talked enough about Moose Creek. Do we have any questions about?
Some people didn't know that we exploded beaver dam.
Yeah. I should tell you, Moose Creek's pretty high elevation. And since the beaver have been gone, the ponds have all silted in. So Tori Ritter with FWP thinks there's going to be a problem if you reintroduce beaver there because it gets so cold, there's not going to be enough for the beaver to survive. So we've gone with the Forest Service, and the Forest Service has come out and put some charges in the channel to excavate really quickly to get us a grade. It's about probably between 5 and 6 feet deep in the deepest place when we're done. And we're going to do 3 of these and have 3 introduction sites. Yeah. Cool. All right. Any questions? All right, we survived it. Thank you guys.
Next time, watch it.
Yep.
Yeah. There's none scheduled, right? Okay, we do have a moment for any new business, anything that wasn't on the agenda that folks have. Speak now or forever hold your peace, and otherwise you're in the way of people's coffee and interviews. Jim has new business.
I don't have new business. I was just curious if anybody had any knowledge or about Brown's Lake Mine. I don't know what you want to call it or whatever. Like a topic maybe for August, like what's going on there. And I just heard that mining company's moving its headquarters from Gillum. I heard that on the radio today.
So that,
Anyway, I just be really curious. I haven't.
We had some folks visit. There was a public, local meeting.
I went to that.
You went to that.
And that's old though. That was right when he was on Fox News or all that. Yeah, he was all early. And then we had a meeting. I think Paul said you were there. We chilled. And I don't know if the situation's changed since then. It's worth the investigation. It's really, I talked to a friend, geologist friend of mine, and it depends on the micro tungsten, yeah. And it's just really weird. It depends on the way local markets work to see if it's viable, but I think they are pushing forward. And I think it's a great thing for us to investigate because I think any news I have from that meeting is going to be outdated. It's a couple months ago.
So what lake are we talking about?
It's Brown's Lake or
Agnes Lake.
Between Agnes and
It was way further out, but
Yeah.
yeah, all over for Boston. Yeah, that one thing is. Yeah. That it's a Browns Lake goes up over the top all the way.
do they? I don't know if they have a claim, but do they have a claim in place
Yeah.
for that whole area? I know that the scene is there.
They bought the claims, but there's no permitting, nothing's been started, right? There's
So I was running the contractor, so that's what I heard from him.
okay.
He's getting a contract. As I know, the tailings of the there above the interstate, it's on the west side where no flat ones. They plan on starting to reprocess. Yeah, we're moving forward on that.
Yes. And that's on how many acres? Small. So
Yeah, it's small, but then they're just looking at reprocessing old tailings, because that wouldn't have been, they think they can do a better job of extracting than they did in the past. The mining claim from their crowns, their gold growth, their magnets, and that seems, they have the claim and they're supposedly gonna work on getting permits, but that's a process I'll go through.
Yeah.
There's no current permits to actually do there's no active permits to do active mining. All they're permitted to do in the near term is reprocess old tailings.
that's the one team levers, we should have been process.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And Dean, there's a whole, the landowner base there was,
No fired up.
yeah, it was like instant, the text.
Yeah.
Yeah, text reporter.
Is that's off the Glen exit to the west of that? Where is that?
Yeah, I forgot.
Is that how it is?
Where Dr. Brooks says,
Yeah.
you can just do West Ham.
Yeah.
And my only kind of go observation is it could be five and other games, where some of the
They're up.
that's an anecdotal.
Yeah.
It's a patented claim. It's there. I don't know how much more they're claiming beyond that. The patent's pretty small, man. They probably claim a lot more than that.
You sent me the stuff, man, that claim goes, it's more stuff than that's not permitted. And they don't permit that too much.
Right. And probably,
No plan of operations, yeah, or anything.
Not that I'm aware of. No, it's in the beginning phases of working with that.
and the ground is,
Oh, there's two. Green block and all underground mine, basically they came all the way under sugar walls. And maybe they could do it, but two guys promoting it are basically used car salesmen, and they don't have what they're talking about, so it's no, you never know.
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway, I don't think it's a rabbit hole. I'm just curious. I've just seen the news stories and I just heard that on the radio again today. Just wondering.
He said they were moving their main office from somewhere in Canada to
There's a
Dillon.
deal, yeah. That was in next on radio.
You might be able to ask Steve Levitsky with the BLM because I'm sure he knows something about it.
because it's on, the public ground is BLM ground. No, it's forest.
But that's BLM,
Yeah, they're saying that the mine was self on for us.
he might not.
So the permitting would all go through forest.
We don't have controls be underground.
They want to build.
First, their mines, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
That's important. Yeah, yeah.
There, 145 CFS 1952 water line. But they pump out the Big Hole River. On the west side of the river, just right along the railroad bridge.
And they'll put it in a pipe, or a ditch when it's dry, I'll guarantee you that.
It's gonna go a heck of a way up.
Yeah. Surface that, and it's, water rights. 1.52 or 1.5 CFS. Do you know what their hurricane is it? So when the river drops 300 CFS, they have to cut that right in half. Okay. And use it. I guess they have piping through the interstate. Nelson indicated they did.
Oh, they did, okay.
I know there's some bend torn on pipe just to the right dish. You didn't see that. But
There's no pipe going all the way up to where they're.
the pump station. Road in the river, and then there's one up in Cherry Counties.
Okay.
It was about that, okay. That's pretty. Later on,
Okay.
It's gonna be a pretty big infrastructure investment, I would say, if they start rebuilding that, and take it serious.
Yeah, don't light my hair on fire quite yet.
Yeah.
There's not much left to go.
Cancel for doing poverty. For.
Yeah, yeah, what I'd be curious about too is just the kind of rock they're mining in, what potential water quality impacts. It's like the mine up in Schmalbert is a tungsten mine as well, but it's in rock that's totally benign. And so it's like, anyway, so there's not much impact as far as water quality goes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case. I had no idea. That's what I was, I'm curious about.
Yeah.
Be good to know.
Some of that was in the information you sent me.
About the rock.
I didn't read all of them, there were a lot of information on documentation, those are
Yeah,
from the nineties,
yeah,
geology reports and.
yeah. I don't know, it was the local guys that found all that stuff and just sent it my way. If anyone's curious, I think I have, I don't know where I have that saved, but I have it somewhere. We'll put it in our folder structure if folks want to learn more. Look into it. Mining companies, they have a lot of money. I made my career on a mining company and we've been restoring land because there was a mining company responsible for paying for stuff.
Is there any
So
concerns water that's sure that healing still? No. Pretty dry.
there's
It's fog, that is good. Yeah, we're thinking, there's no serious fog around here. And the hangings, well, maybe it was supposed to be capped or whatever. And we had a lot of dust around there that some people felt flags and some issues. I know that the most current setting was focused on remining that those tailings for garnet sand, the sandlot, so not necessarily even for.
Okay. All right, keep us posted if anyone hears anything or if we can help get information out to folks. And keep the steering committee posted as we hear things, if we need to say anything as an organization.
I'll look at this, seeing if we can have it as an August topic, if there's someone who's out.
Yeah, let's see where it goes first. If they really get going, it's like an active thing, then we'll certainly invite them to come and present to the group. So hear it straight from the horse's mouth and thing. All right. Y'all, we got coffee, we got cookies. Hang out for a minute, visit. If you want to think about places you love in the Big Hole and want to start sticky noting some stuff out there and help us with planning, have at it, and I'll call you back in 10 minutes. Yeah. All right, y'all. Thanks everybody. Just hanging around, and we're really thrilled to have presentation about virtual fencing. Hand over to Pat.
Thank you.
For coming.
Thank you, guys. Well, I know that Jim Murphy and Sean Claffey, you guys know, they were part of the board for a while, and they're part of the Southwest Montana Sagebrush Partnership. And I have these fact sheets that I'll just pass around, and you can take one if you want. There's not enough for everybody, but so initially they were working on the four threats in Southwest Montana: invasive annual grass, conifer encroachment, wetland riparian degradation, and barrier fences and wildlife connectivity. And then in 23, we added and it's an opportunity, not a threat. So we added the flexible grazing project. And the flexible grazing project it's a collaborative community-based conservation project designed to test new technologies, tools, and practices to try and increase flexibility of grazing practices, improve rangeland and habitat condition, and help working ranches become more resilient. So we wanted to find a way to try and help keep working ranches working. So that was the initial thought. And I'll just filter this. There. So we had three main goals to start with. Economic goal to enhance profitability of working ranches by improving efficiency and flexibility of livestock management on rangelands and trying to encourage the next generation to continue ranching. Environmental to promote and improve land health and resilience, including soil health, carbon sequestration, wildlife habitat, vegetative diversity and production. And then a social goal to preserve open space, wildlife habitat, rural Western traditions and lifestyle, natural scenic vistas, clean water, clean air, and other ecosystem services. So we don't want it to look like Bozeman to Three Forks. So why now? There's a tremendous increase in the human population, worldwide, country, region, and people moving from urban to rural areas at greatly increased rates. I teach a range management class at Western, and I use this textbook. And on the first chapter, it tells the challenges of range managers in the 21st century. And the number one challenge that it said is sustaining ranching as an occupation and way of life is what it says is the number one challenge. And just recently, Morgan Kuntz Garrison wrote an article for the Prairie Star, and it's an article on our flexible grazing project, but she wrote in there, it's no secret that our whole country is losing ranchers. The last cattle cycle alone axed some 10,000 working families from the landscape. And while many organizations and agencies have noticed the rapid decline, few have been able to stop the bleeding. So it's a real issue, losing ranchers off the land and farmers. Fluctuations in climate have increased the need for more resilience in rangelands. The demand for property continues to soar across the West. Land prices are at an all-time high, tempting owners to sell land to recreational or development interests. The cost of barbed wire fences, both construction and maintenance, have sharply increased, and I know you guys all know that. There's increased availability of innovative tools and technology, and their use in other regions has shown the potential for successful implementation, and that's virtual fence, GPS ear tags, offensive cattle herding, and innovative livestock water, to name a few. Some federal permits do not have solid or consistent AUMs available. And new funding sources have become available from federal and nonprofit organizations to support rangeland improvement projects and help offset the risks and costs associated with collaborative conservation efforts. Why in Southwest Montana? A strong partnership of agency and nonprofit partners, thinking ranchers, and collaborative spirit already exists to successfully implement and learn from pilot efforts. Rangelands here form some of the healthiest and most intact sagebrush steppe habitat remaining in the West, preserved due to a thriving ranching and agricultural community. The area's open spaces and natural beauty attract many amenity buyers who may lack the stewardship ethic and knowledge or community ties found in traditional ranching, potentially shifting the view of land from a resource to care for to a commodity to own. So people that have lived here, it's like it's land and resources. And the word you hear, people moving in and buying it, it's my property. So there's a whole different mindset with that. There is strong community support for the ecosystem benefits that working ranches provide. And then all the things we mentioned, the rural culture where people care about each other still. The long-term goals of the project, these are our kind of long-term vision that we're hoping to do is share knowledge and lessons learned and successful management strategies from each pilot ranch with other local and regional ranchers, supporting them in achieving their environmental and economic objectives. Regularly update and provide best management practices to federal, state, and local land management agencies to help them broaden the reach of flexible, profitable grazing systems. And through this entire effort, foster a locally led community of practice that encourages knowledge sharing across generations and among private and public land managers, local businesses, and community leaders to strengthen our common goals and nurture deeper connections to the land and its resources within the community. And to do that last one, we've been trying to develop and facilitate 2 workshops a year where we have ask the participants what they want to learn more about, and then we have speakers come in and field trips and stuff to just help teach people more about the community members, more about ranching, and the ranchers to share ideas and knowledge with each other. So the time frame of our project, I'll just go through this kind of quickly, but in 2023, we had a small team in the Southwest Montana Sagebrush Partnership, and we met with the ranchers and range specialists in Southwest Montana and asked them, what tools would you like to try? What can help you? How would you like us to do this? And then we sent letters out to a whole list of ranchers and invited them to submit proposals for this. And we thought we'd get a couple, and we got eight proposals offering to try different things and share with other ranchers. So we accepted all 8 of them. And in 24, we met with all of them and the applicable agency specialists to identify the tools to test, to develop the goals and objectives, get the grazing plan. We drafted the project, the budgets, and identified and applied for sources of funding. We hired a monitoring coordinator to help, and then we had a team to develop an economic monitoring process so we can not monitor the land, but also the economic effects of using these tools. And then in 25, 8 pilot ranches implemented flexible grazing plans. 5 of them were testing halter virtual fence. 2 began testing eShepherd virtual fence, including Dan and Colt High, and then Mark Boyd over by Alder. And 1 continued using the Vents virtual fence. Environmental monitoring was collected in all the pastures that were grazed in 25. And then we recorded the economic information and did some qualitative interviews at the end of the season to see what the benefits were, what the challenges were, and all that. And we're working with Montana State University to analyze that socioeconomic data. And then 26, we're reviewing the objectives and refining the grazing plans based on what we learned in 25. Most of the ranchers adding more collars and are piloting new tools. And we're continuing to apply for grants. And some of the ranchers applied for the NRCS RPP contracts as well. And it's planned for 5 years currently through 2029, our whole project. So the pilot ranches, the 8 pilot ranches include 5 traditional family ranches that are in some phase of transferring the business to the next generation, and 3 corporate ranches managed by families. They include relatively small to large ranches, and this really wasn't by design, but it's really helpful to have the various sizes and different types of ranches so that we can, when we share information, successes, and lessons learned, that we can share it with the variety of similar ranches across the region. The pilot ranches include the Holland Ranch, just west of Dillon, Johnson Ranch and Big Sheep Creek, the Boyd Angus Ranch over by Alder, SRI River Holdings or the Old Hamilton Ranch, J. Barrell Ranch in Centennial, the Lee Martinell Company Family Ranch in Centennial, the Broksle Ranch here in the Big Hole, and the Matador Ranch down in Centennial. So that's who we're working with. For the remainder of this presentation, we'll focus on the Broksle Ranch project in the Big Hole Valley and near Twin Bridges. And so Colt will take it from here and I'll go through the slides.
Yeah, so our goals in this project was to really improve the livestock distribution and utilization on our grazing association property here west of Wisdom, and then decrease the overutilized areas that were close to the stream banks, riparian areas, meadows. We also wanted to improve the rangeland health, thinking that if we could better utilize those upland areas of sagebrush, that we could increase production also, the grass production. We also wanted to increase rest. By having control of livestock, we can keep them off of some places and allow some of that pasture to rest every year rather than raising it year after year.
And just by design, so if you had, just for instance, if you think about it, if you had 1,000-acre pasture and you're in there 60 days, but you divide it into 10 100-acre pastures with your virtual fence, then you're in each part for 6 days, and every other spot gets 54 more days of growing season rest. So that's the other.
Yeah. We like to say the more important part isn't where your cows are, but where they're not. And if you can keep them off of that grass trying to recover and recuperate, you're better off. It's the soil health and your plant community. By doing this project, we're also getting a lot more accurate data collection of what we have out there. And not only what we have, but then how can we plan and develop a grazing plan for how to better use it. And we've also got conflicts with elk and other wildlife habitat, sage grouse, horned grayling, and we all have to share that habitat, and we try to do our part to not abuse it. Yeah, and so the longer term goal is to expand the use of these collars or adaptive grazing, these methods, practices, to other parts of the association. And that's sometimes hard to do. Being part of the association, you're a member of it and you all own. So it's every ranch or family has their goals and they don't always align. But we were lucky enough that with our association is big enough, we had an isolated piece of property that we could run by ourselves because we've changed our calving date to a different calving date than the rest of the association, and we can't have bulls in with our cows until we're ready to start our breeding. We were lucky enough that it's been able to work out. We can run separate, and the remaining members of the association aren't really involved with the project. We're hoping that we can share the results of this and try to implement some of these same practices on the rest of our owned acres. Yeah, and really, in the end, we want to extend the grazing season, and we need to feed less hay. There's 60 to 70% of carrying the cost of a cow is tied up in fed feed, and so if we can reduce, that's going to help our profitability and sustainability and everything. We need to get away from fed feed, and so using these collars, that the collar on summer grazing in the Big Hole doesn't necessarily reduce our fed feed, but it provides us another tool that we can use year round. And we are using them year round on our home place at Twin Bridges.
Can you tell us what the virtual fence is?
Yeah, we'll get to we'll get to that.
We'll get into it. So we've got basically two pastures that we summer on in the Big Hole. It's about 1,500 acres, and they're split in half. One's 700, one's 800, and that's how we've traditionally ran. That 1,500 acres has ran about 150 pair for 4 months of the summer. And by chopping it up into smaller pieces, we're able to better utilize it, and we were actually able to rest it. But our objectives is increase the cover on the ground, less bare ground, composition of native cool season grasses, vegetative diversity, improve soil health. And I guess to improve soil health, we're doing that by herd impacts, by having more of an impact for a short time and then getting off of it. Decrease the bare ground, so by grazing in a more efficient way, we're hoping that we can manage the sagebrush canopy to a degree that doesn't hinder the grass performance and doesn't hinder the habitat for sage grouse.
Is that accomplished by spraying or burning or
No, grazing,
Grazing,
just grazing?
targeted grazing.
But they don't eat the sagebrush.
they will during certain times of the year. We
They
found
will.
that out. It's not, they don't necessarily eat it during a time of the year when we're there, because their sagebrush has terpenes in it, and it creates a toxic taste for them that they don't like it. In the fall, owls actually will eat it.
Is some of that achieved just through trampling?
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
just by trampling.
And we're increasing that trampling by keeping cows in a smaller area. They can't help but step on sagebrush rather than just being widely dispersed and meandering, following another cow down a trail.
That makes sense.
I don't know if people know this, and I'm not a wildlife biologist, so I might be speaking out here, but sage grouse do not like really thick sagebrush.
No,
They want to disperse.
in the sage grouse EIS, it says for nesting and brood rearing, 15 to 25% canopy cover, and it's almost higher than that almost everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's thicker than what most sage grouse want.
They don't necessarily like all either. They like to be able to crouch down on it and stand up and see.
And there was just a couple objectives for the streams too.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm guessing that the baseline that y'all are working in, similar to the forest, is it hasn't been very actively managed, and so you're tending towards sort of monocrop stands, same age classes of sagebrush, just like the forest is, right?
Correct.
And so you're
Yeah, in places.
intensifying the disturbance.
Yeah, and grazing, not grazing the same place, the same time every year. Grazing areas at a different time of the year,
Yeah.
and you promote other species. Yeah, so obviously we want to improve some of the riparian areas that get abused and increase the production of the range in the end. So economically, we want to increase the number of AUMs that we can collect off that property. We want to reduce labor costs, equipment and supply costs, and decrease the cost per head per day. And we want to increase average daily gain on our calves. And then on our home place, the big lever we can pull is extending our grazing season into the winter, the springtime, and until they come back to the summer pasture.
Hey, Colt, yeah. So you're talking that ground between Swamp Creek and Highway 43, 1,500 acres.
Yep.
You said a percentage of that you rested. How many acres do you think you rested?
It's probably 300, and we'll get to some
We'll show
slides
you
here
that.
that'll show you what we've grazed this year and what got rested. So this is a base station for the virtual fence callers, and so this is a collar that we put on a cow, and it's got a battery in there. There are solar panels on both sides, so the solar panels recharge the battery, and I can pass it around here. The cow, here's that around her neck. We fit it in a squeak chute, and then I assign them to a herd, and then I assign that herd to they call it a VP, a virtual paddock. And I can pull it up. There's a desktop version or a mobile app, but I do it on the desktop version. It's a lot easier with a bigger screen. But I can draw there's our cows over here off Swamp Creek with collars on. And
They tolerate that, okay, that doesn't.
I would say the first couple minutes, they don't like it. You let them out of the chute, and it's like a buck and shoot. For 8 seconds, they buck and throw their head. We had one cow end up upside down, all 4 feet in the air, just stay there. But
It's good rodeo training.
yeah, after that initial period, they get used to it and they realize their new reality, and they're fine with it.
How many of them have you broke?
So we've had callers come off. I would say to date, we're not quite a year into this, and we've had probably, I'd say 10 come off total, but only one that we weren't able to find. And we don't know why, if something happened to it. Usually I can locate them. I can look at my phone and walk right to it. But we weren't able to locate this one. Don't know if it went down a badger hole or what.
Two of the guys saw the light down Badger Hole. So two of the other ranchers found their collars down Badger Hole, and it was just like a new total badger. And
So 10 collars.
So we started with 150 callers. And I think going forward, we'll lose a lot fewer. We initially fitted them for about a hand width of slack on their neck when you put it on. And we found out that's a little bit too loose. And so that's what contributed to many of them coming off. What's the cost? These collars are $250 a collar. So this is through Gallagher, and their business model is that you purchase the collar, and then there's a small data fee for the transfer of data.
and they're supposed to last about 10 years.
7 to 10 years. There's other companies out there like Halter is popular, has a similar product. It's a lot lighter and it sits up higher on the neck. Doesn't have a big bell on the bottom, but they operate on a lease. And so it's, I think, $60 a month.
It went up this year.
It went up.
72 for the traditional ones and 92 for the new ones.
It's a powerful tool, but it's not cheap. Let's put it that way. Yeah, so traditionally, we graze this 1,500 acres that's split into 2 pastures on Swamp Creek. That's mostly uplands. We grazed one half for half the summer, and around July, we switched to the south end. And we grazed the north end because the water's kind of limited, and there's some seasonal water in the springtime that we could capture and be able to graze. And then the cattle came out in September. And so this year, or in summer of 25, using these collars, we've reduced the size of pasture that those cows had access to and rotated them through. We started on the south side first and went through about 30 different pastures. The size varied because I experimented with different days. I was trying to do anywhere from a daily moves to up to 7 days. And then obviously the range had different levels of production too, trying to adjust for that. Yeah, and so we'll get another slide here. I think the following slide will show some trying to limit access to the streams that come through. We've got Swamp Creek and Moose Creek that come through our property, and we were trying to use those for watering points. And traditionally, the cattle, they had full access to the full length of it, both sides, where they could camp out down there in the willows and do that on hot summers. So I was able to fence it off to where they could only have access where we had hardened bottoms where it was easy to cross. And so you can see these are Moose Creek and Swamp Creek go right through there. And I've got a lot of paddocks that have a boundary right on that creek or right on the bank. And it varied, but I tried not to let those cows get close to the bank, and they didn't. They were forced to water in places where it was hard bottom, rocky, and that worked well.
So each one of these is one of his little paddocks that he used for a couple days or whatever, up 2 to 7 days.
How does that work? Are you out there when you virtually change the paddock, then are you out there on the ground and have to push them to where you want them, or do they just feel it out by?
They realize that there's new grass available relatively quickly. And I've been out there when it's been turned on and I don't hear an audible tone or anything,
Yeah.
but it's really quick when one cow crosses that boundary. The other cows say, hey, she crossed, it's time to go. And they follow pretty quick.
So does that mean that while they're in a paddock, or cows are repeatedly bumping up against the boundary?
They are. Because but that base station I was showing you, that's the location of our base station. This is Wisdom, Gibbonsville Road. Our base station's there right next to the road, but that caller has to talk to the base station, and the base station talks to either cell towers or satellites. But once I execute a new pasture, a virtual pasture paddock, it takes, depending on how close they are to the shepherd, anywhere from say 15 minutes to an hour. All those callers to get the new directions.
I see.
And so some cows will get those new directions quickly and some won't. And you'll see cows that'll bump up against that and they'll turn their head and have to walk back, and they'll bump it again and they'll come back. But for the most part, at least in the Big Hole, we've got really good coverage with our base station. And so I would say on average, within 30 minutes, everybody has the new guy.
I have
T-Mobile. So we don't use any cellular. Now Gallagher makes another collar that works off the cellular towers.
And then you don't need that tower.
That you don't need a base station. But we knew that we were marginal on our cell coverage at home and in the Big Hole, and we wanted to make sure that we had good coverage, so we went with the base station.
Can you explain how your water gaps work? Do you do that with just the virtual fencing, or did you
Yep.
have like physical fencing?
No, no fence.
No fence.
So I'd
I
love to see like a close up of how that looks. But
I think
don't
he
have
has some here.
yeah, it'll be a little bit better on some of these other slides.
Okay.
Oh, it went too far.
Question in the back too. Or, no.
No.
I had a question, but
Okay, but some of the rules when you create those paddocks is they don't want you creating a paddock where a cow gets stuck in there and she can't get out. You can't have corners less than 80 degrees, or you can't have a boundary a straight line length shorter than 5 yards. And so those water gaps, as much as I'd like to keep them really small, I have to at least have, say, 30 feet wide. And so that those cows have got room to get in there and not bump into that boundary all the time. So this is just some of our photos. This is some of our fall and winter grazing. This is cows on swaths. That's just some hay that got rained on and we weren't able to get put up. And I turned cows out on it and rationed it out with these collars, and they just came along and cleaned it right up. The hay, it was funny because the part of this field we put up as hay, and it was marginal whether it was ready or not, and it was too green and it ended up being moldy hay. The hay that I left out in the field was beautiful. And they cleaned it right up. Doing less is more.
Then Garrison, hay there, and Ballard and Bellagine.
This?
No,
This is grazing corn. This is corn on our home place in Twin Bridges. It's grazing corn, so it's an 80-day corn that's a low lignin. So it doesn't, lignin meaning that it's not as woody and it doesn't stand up as well, it falls over. But the cows can eat it better because it's not so woody, so they'll eat it right to the ground. And on this, I was doing daily moves with that. I give them 1.25 acres a day, and they just marched right across the field. And that's the nice thing is, if you try to do this with polywire, and even with sagebrush, with polywire, your electric fence, it's just a nightmare trying to keep it off the sagebrush, and it's hitting this or drowning out, where the collars, I don't worry about it.
Okay, and I'll just go through the monitoring that we set up. So we set up some trend monitoring, and it's just a permanent transect that we set up and went along there and read all of all the plants that were there, or bare ground, or whatever. And then we looked at the vegetative diversity, and it's set up in a circle. So there's one plot going north, one southeast, and one southwest. And then in the circle, we recorded every species of plant that was there. We did a water infiltration test to see how long it took to infiltrate water in the little ring. So that tells you, it's one indicator of soil health. And then we did the clip and weigh to know how many pounds per acre were there. And then we did soil samples and did the Haney test. And we went back after grazing and did utilization monitoring. So these will be measured again in 5 years to see the change. And utilization's done every year in the same spot so that we can help analyze the data better. And then economic, we just had a spreadsheet. And then I said, we just did a qualitative interview of what worked, what didn't work, what were the challenges, what were the benefits, a whole bunch of questions that we asked that's how we found out about the badgers and a bunch of different interesting things. So this is just one of in the north pasture. So this was June 23rd when we set it up. And it was just the line 2, so it's looking southeast. And then this is on November 4th. It wasn't grazed, looking the same direction. And so we'll look at that in 5 years and see how it looks. And this is Big Swamp Creek on November 4th. That was after grazing. So I set up a green line study along there. And I think we had, like, on the utilization, we had average stubble height of sedge is what we look at, and it was like 12 inches or something. So it was great. Didn't really get used.
Yeah, and I don't think you can quite see in there where we grazed up to. In this, you can see each one of these is a boundary, and then I've got blue pins that I draw, and I actually have to walk out there, but for water sources, I prefer to go out there and make sure that I've got a legitimate water source before I start forcing cows to go to some point. I went out there with my 4-wheeler and went to these locations and said, yes, one, it's a good place where I can cross the stream with the 4-wheeler, but also it's going to be satisfactory flow that I can have cattle water there. So I selected those points ahead of time and then had my paddocks tie into those water points.
Okay.
For 26, we're going to start in the north pasture where some of that seasonal water is, and that's 300 acres that we rested last year. We're going to start there and then move to the south pasture and try to just work across it. And we'll do it a different route. We'll do different VPs and try to hit places at a different time. And the biggest thing is we're going to try to leave more residual. It was a learning curve because you forget that the calves aren't collared, the bulls aren't collared, it's just the cows. And so those bulls and those calves, they reach out ahead, the cows, and they're getting the good stuff, the good grass, haven't been grazed yet, and the cows kind of have to clean up behind them. And granted, there's still a lot there, but it's just accounting for that.
You mentioned to me that the younger cows didn't do quite as well as their cows just because, and how are you gonna change that this next year?
This next year, 2 things. When those younger cows got home, we had a poor breed on some of them. And so some of those are going to fall out. But one thing that we did on our irrigated pastures at home in the fall is I gave those younger cows, the ones that were bred, I gave them more. They were a separate herd, but they had a bigger paddock than the older cows. So they always had an area that they could go to that they didn't have to compete with the older cows.
So on the association ground though, what are you gonna do?
Plan is I'm going to leave those wet H2s. I'm going to have them at home.
Okay.
We're going to keep them at home, and I'll take older cows to the home. Yeah.
So I like what you're touching on there. An organization, social level advice. We've got agencies and NGOs of this texture, right? So they're really pushing that, and what we're seeing, land here. He's put this out, right, putting out $7,000 you buy on this year. And most ranchers bought really consider this without actually, but what I also find is NGOs, they've got the grant from NISWA or whoever, and at the end of that grant, they want to tell a positive story. And so we're hearing a lot of positive stories all over the web. But when I go around and talk to ranchers, bench scholars, I'm hearing consistently 30% non-breed up on younger cattle, than what you're saying. So I really appreciate the fact that you're touching on this. We've got a trial going on with Gallagher followers in New Mexico, but I haven't heard back. And I don't know the conditions. So I think it's really important to, like to ask is, mom to breed up, what other problems have you had?
Yeah.
Initially, we had a little bit of an issue with the base stations, putting them up. Our home place is 2 hours from our pasture in the Big Hole. The first time I put up a base station, it took me most of the day to get it done, to get it erected. I got it up, got it turned on, everything's good, and I drive home, and then next day the base station's down. And so then I got to go figure out, troubleshoot on the phone with Gallagher, and have to go back, and basically all we had to do was reboot it. But that was some of the little issues up front, learning and figuring some stuff out. But basically, they can't ship the battery with a full charge. So when it gets to me, it's not fully charged, and it takes a while for the solar panel to get fully charged. And that's what happened. I had both my base stations go down, the one in the Big Hole plus the one at home, within 24 hours. But since then, I haven't had issues with the base stations.
Ranchers who have had a similar collar to this chain type collar, where their cows will go out and run on one another and choke themselves. I think we've got 10 instances of that recorded right now.
Wow.
So I don't know if you were in the week.
I can tell you that Tony Johnson put 100 collars on 100 yearling heifers. What?
You saw it.
Huge halter, and he had them on 100 yearling heifers, and he grazed the irrigation ditches and the little corners around pivots and stuff that was unrealized potential. So he said he got 3 months of free grazing without grazing anything that he had before. And he emailed me about a week ago and said he got 40% better breed up this year on those heifers than he ever has.
But what we're hearing, we're hearing main results from Walter.
Yeah. So that's, and yeah, and that's one of the interview questions is about breed up and stuff. So we're going to try and record that with the different vendors and share that.
Why is that? You know, or
We feel that our breed up was mostly, it was due to management. It wasn't the collars. The collars was the tool, but it was management that we pushed our herd too hard, and that we needed to give them more pasture. Plus, it's younger animals that they're raising a calf on their side. They've got one in utero, and they're trying to grow themselves. It's a really stressful time for them. And last summer was a really dry year in the Big Hole. So we felt that we were mostly to blame for our breed up. Now our cows that had those same collars on, we had an excellent breed up. I didn't have a single cow out of the herd that we sent to the Big Hole. I had 15 opens, and 12 of them were first time calvers, and 3 were second time calvers, and everybody else was bred. So I don't contribute the breed up to the collars, but there's constantly working on things, and I think there's tools out there you can use the collars and other methods. I know Halter's got some things where you can detect defects now just by using that collar.
What's the information like if there's predators or stuff? The cows, are they gonna take off through these boundary fences? Will they push through it if they're disturbed enough by the grizzly bear, wolves, or?
They will push through it. And we've had cows push through that boundary. I didn't contribute it to predators, because it was the same cow, same stubborn cow. And so,
Always one.
but that's good to know that if they have to, they can push through it, and they're not gonna constantly get a pulse.
As soon as they're out of
As soon as they're out, there's a time period there where it keeps trying to get them back, but once they're out and past that time period, then it stops.
But you can still see where they're at all times. You can see where every cow is, so you know they're out, which is helpful.
Yeah, and since last summer, Gallagher's came out with a new feature that is called return to paddock. And you can select individual animals and say return to paddock, and you turn that on. And so that collar will give them that animal a pulse when it gets farther from the boundary. If it's already out and it continues to get farther and farther, it'll get a pulse. It won't get a pulse if it gets closer. And so it'll just gradually work them back in. And that's how I've been able to train those bad actors.
How long is the pulse extend if they're out? Sorry.
I don't know. I've been around those cows when they get out, and I would say a couple minutes, because if you can hear the audible tone, and I'm assuming that they're getting a pulse at that same time.
And that's how they work too. They get the audio first, and then if they don't listen to it, then they get shot. They learn to listen.
Yeah.
With the upgrade from Gallagher, return to pasture, whatever.
Yeah.
Do you have to download another part of the right?
Nope. They just have an update, and all of a sudden I got a new icon on my screen. Now, with Gallagher, I have gotten emails once in a while that they say there's an outage, and it's usually has to do with the cellular collars. That there's a communication issue between Gallagher and T-Mobile or Verizon, a cellular company, where it creates an outage, and they have to resolve it, and then I get an email saying it's back home. During those outages, I haven't experienced them because it hasn't applied to the base station callers.
And just for liability of those companies, they have to have a good structural outer fence between highways and other people's land and whatever. So you use these as interior fences.
Do you think or what's your estimate on much it saves you in time and gas coming out? You still have to check your cows, but you didn't have to necessarily move them around much.
And we have Dave Peterson hired by Vincent to move and monitor our cows. And so I rely on him a lot for my eyes. And he'll call me and say, yeah, you're doing about right. Or no, we need to move them. They're out of grass. And so then, truth be told, I probably need to be making more trips to monitor the grass. And that's one of my goals this summer, is to make more trips with you. So I would say there actually probably wasn't a savings there, because in the past, you turn them out and you don't worry about moving them for 2 months. You still have to check for water, and you still got to check for health and stuff. But more monitoring, it requires a little bit more monitoring. And one of the things we're going to try is a game camera at our water tanks. That'll help. All right, we've got water out, we can act on it right away and help monitoring. What else do we have here? Yeah, so we're going to do different configurations of the pastures, different timing of the year. We'll rest a different portion of the pastures. We're going to continue to fence off those sensitive areas and the riparian areas. And I think we can probably do shorter durations and more frequent moves. And we're looking at trying to do a portable water trough. This isn't so much for use in the Big Hole as it is on our home place. We're on the bank of the Beaverhead River. The river's continually, we've got a fence line that runs alongside the river to fence the river off, but the river's always moving and washing the fence out. Our cattle are getting out, the neighbor cattle are getting in, and if we can get the fence established, we can use this trough. It's a solar powered pump that can pump out of the river, and we can move it up and down the river wherever we want to. But there's a lot of different uses we could use it for. It's capable of 40 feet of lift and 100 to 150 feet horizontal. I think he said 35 gallons per minute, so it's a pretty potent pump. It'll water 300 fares. That's what I'm told.
Colt, does that require you to get a stock water permit from the DNRC other than how the in-stream is?
I don't know that, but we're looking into it. We do have a water right for direct from source.
From what I know, since it's temporary, it's not a permanent change in place of use. It's temporary and they already have a stock water right for the river that they don't need to.
Another question. Technology is always changing. You get into rough country, it's difficult with towers. Are they developing maybe a solar panel in your tank? Yet working on satellite.
They already have those. Yeah, the Hollands used some Lone Star units last year. There's also one called Movement, another one 701X. And then, yeah, those are the three that I know about that.
Don't think Gallagher had any, but there are.
They're different companies.
Yeah, so this photo here is my grazing corn, and all my cows are lined up nice and neat on that 1.25 acres. But
I've got one out there, one straggler.
Yeah.
There's one straggler.
that's in a morning,
Yeah.
because the other thing with this is that prior to calving season, we try to, if we are feeding hay, we want to feed in the evenings, because it helps when the cattle are ruminating. They tend to calve during the day. If they eat in the evening, they calve during the day. And so it decreases our labor costs of trying to night calve. And so prior to calving, I'm trying to get those cows programmed to eat in the evening. So 5 o'clock every night, those cows were getting 1.25 acres of grazing corn. And then the following morning, that's what I'd see, is they were still down there eating. But they got to know time 5 o'clock was. They would be lined up on that and ready for it. And so that's another feature with the virtual fence, is I can schedule that move. So I've got a meeting tonight that I really want to have those cows want that turned on at 5 o'clock. I can schedule it to turn on and it'll turn on. And then this is just a photo of a field that was in potatoes last year, and I drilled winter triticale into that. And it's something that we've started doing the last couple of years, because the potatoes are really hard on the soil and real loose. We've got real sandy type soil, and when you harvest potatoes in October, there's not much growing season left to get any roots in the ground. And so we try to do this to get a living root in the ground and hold the soil. That winter triticale or winter wheat will come up, and then it'll vernalize and then come back in the spring. And so right now it's got the rows closed, it's got a good canopy, and it looks awesome. That's just some of the things we're trying to do to limit our erosion and provide cattle feed, to keep a living root in the soil for more months of the year. And then it decreases my workload in the spring of trying to go out and farm that. And we're capturing more water. So that's a big win for us. One thing I will say on the collars, and I didn't talk about it much, but when we've got a virtual paddock, we expand it and then bring up the back fence and just keep doing that. And it's never perfect, because those cattle can always go back to some degree, but I try to do a good job of bringing up that back fence shortly after. As soon as those cattle find that new grass, they all know. And that's the time to bring up that back fence so they can't go back and retrees.
And as far as the other ranchers too, I think there's 6 of them now using halter, no, 5 using halter, 2 using these eShepherd, and Matador still using some Vince collars. And I think we have close to 4,000 collars out in Southwest Montana, testing them and trying them. And yeah, there's pros and cons, but hopefully we can share all that, and then people will at least have the information to make a good decision about if it's something they want to do and if it's worth it.
So how long do you think it'll take you to get your investment back?
Well,
Let's let you know from here.
Grants are trying to subsidize me.
yeah, so in theory, we were hoping that we could, if we could double our utilization, our AUMs on the current acres that we have, and just going into this, I just ran some numbers to try to say, all right, is this feasible if we did this? And if we could double our utilization, we would get a return on investment inside of 5 years. But that's just using the dollars on summer pasture. And it's really hard to quantify some of the other bonuses that we get by doing this. And
Some of the guys that are in mountainous country that said they looked for 4 heifers for 4 days before. And now we can just go, they know where every single one of them is in that mountainous country when they gather in the fall. That's pretty direct savings right there as far as labor. And they found the reducing conflicts with carnivores. If one stops moving for an hour, it'll beep them and they can go see. And I know one of the guys said there was a dot in the trees and he went in there and had a really scary confrontation with the grizzly bear and then remembered why he doesn't go in trees looking for cattle. But he got paid for that kill from the bear. So anyway.
there's a lot of I'm finding more and more things that it's helping me with every day. And the winter and the fall and the winter and now the spring grazing. This is my first season calving with these collars on. And I'm just kind of having to think about how I manage them and how that works. And it's helping me. But it is hard to quantify some of those things.
So when you were talking about moving your fence up for a new grazing lot, bringing up your back fence, you're not in the big hole doing that. You're doing that from wherever you're at.
Right. I'm doing that at home at my desk on my computer. And when Jake says, yeah, they're out of grass, I say, all right, I'll try, or we need to get them more grass. Okay. That paddock was supposed to last them 3 days. And Jake's telling me that on day 2, it's looking pretty bleak. All right, I got to do more. I got to adjust. And I'm monitoring that closer with there's just no replacement for being out there looking at the range. And that's a room for improvement this year.
Did Jake have any positives or negatives that you didn't notice with him being there?
I think it was easy for him to check for help because they were all in one area. He didn't have to go look in the willows and over there. And
When you expanded it, like a paddock, you wanted it to move and you say you shrink it back up. How long would you give them to then shrink it?
I would usually still include some of that previous paddock so they weren't nice and tight.
So you've always still kept an overlap?
A little bit of overlap, yeah. Yeah.
Getting more problems with the parasites, with some more concentrated grazing.
We didn't. All summer in the Big Hole, I don't know if Jake even doctored one of our calves. We didn't have any sickness. We were missing one calf. At the end of the season, we were missing one. And that they could have went to the neighbors, it could have been a predator. We had no signs or proof that it was a predator. No cows were doctored and no calves were doctored. And that's a change from previous years. We've always had something that needs to be doctored.
How do you doctor?
We allow Jake to go. We've got a dart gun. If he wants to use a dart gun, we give him those options.
So you have to train Jake to understand.
He's got the app on his phone, so he can see it. And that's.
I know on our electric fence, you gotta train the cowboys before you do the cowboy.
Yeah. That's one of the big questions is how do you train them after you put them on? The outer does recommend a training period. And we did that at home. My cows are trained to polywire. And so I made a polywire paddock, but on one side, 3 sides of polywire, one side was virtual. And so I got used to finding that virtual and they could associate polywire with that virtual fence because the rest of the virtual fence was on polywire. So they can make that connection and it doesn't take long. We've even had cows that lose the collar and they still go with the herd. They don't go out on their own. They're still with the herd, even though they can if they want to.
So what do the bulls do? You're down collared, they stay in the cows while they're recycling.
Yeah, yep. And then later in the season, they go brush up. But for the most part, they stayed with the cows.
As long as they were recycling.
Yeah.
Two questions. One, how are the rest of the association folks? What are they saying? Are they just letting you go off and test everything and see how you do before?
Yeah, yeah. They're not involved with it and they don't see them, but we really haven't heard too much from them.
Okay.
Um,
But you're sharing, I mean, you're
we're
sharing your
sharing what we
experiences.
experience
and-
with, yeah.
Yeah.
How's I'm just kind of guessing, 'cause this is like, we're on that bell curve, right? You're the early adopters.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a minute. How's that feeling for you all?
I think if we were to ask the other members to do the same thing that we're doing, there would be strong resistance to it, just
So far.
so far.
Although over by Virginia City where Mark Boyd runs and he has those collars that are pretty visible, a couple things happened. When they had that fire by Sheridan, he had 3 or 4 people call him up. Can you bring your cows with collars up here and raise the grass in our place so it doesn't burn our house down? And then another that I think it's called Colt Ranch up by Axolotl. And they have like 20 acres or something and the grass grew really tall and they called him and said, can you bring your collared cows up here and graze this down so it looks better and is healthier and whatever? So
It's creating virtual.
he's in a place where there's just so much development and subdivisions and people that they're seeing them and they've watched Yellowstone and they see those collars and they want to hire his cows to do some work for them, which is interesting.
Like jingle bells. It's
Yeah.
not Hollands.
Yeah, the Hollands, they play jingle bells on the halter collars.
The flashing lights that you go by on the highway.
Yeah,
It's fuzzy. My question was, didn't Hollands have more trouble losing collars? Do you know?
no,
They were in the woods, and some of that is pretty gnarly with.
they only used them down on their feedlot pastures. They had the ear tags up in the woods.
Okay.
Yeah, they had 238 of them on, and they lost 3 throughout the season. So,
The halter.
the halter ones. They lost a bunch of ear tags. They had them on their calves though, and yeah, they were heavy for the calves. I think they lost 25% of them.
Cool. How much do the ear tags weigh? That thing's really.
I can't remember. I'd have to look. I think they were several ounces, but still for a calf's ear, that's quite a bit. And they were in trees and they did have wolves up there too. So they thought it was some being harassed by wolves.
How much do the ear tags cost?
I'd have to look for sure, but I think they're like $100 a piece.
Would you, if you were using the ear tags on the calves, could you pull all them? Because you're not gonna sell them with the tags in them, I assume. You reuse them.
Yes.
I would assume so. If I was you might want to reuse it.
Yeah, that 100 includes the subscription costs for 3 years. And so then I asked them, how long do you think they'll last? They'll probably last 5 years. Okay, what's the subscription cost for year 4 and year 5? And they said, we only give those for 3 years. And I'm like, okay, can you ask? And they did ask, and it was just a minimal little bit, bucket ear tag or something for years 4 and 5 if they last that long. But they were super helpful for them, and they're using them again. They're doing a study up there in the Elkhorns of, they have collars on their guard dogs with Starlink, and then the calves, and then they're looking at the wolves, and there's a group from MSU doing a study on that.
They have a pretty good.
Yeah. So yeah, and we did get grants to fund the stuff for the 5-year project or most of it for these pilot ranches to be with and because they're stepping out on the edge and willing to share and try something new and put the labor in and put the time in and take the risk. And So yeah, we did get grants to pay for this initially with that idea. And not everyone wants to do that, so it's nice that we had 8 people that were willing to try things and test them, and if it's not worth it, then it's not worth it, but at least people will know. And they'll know the benefits, they'll know the challenges, they'll know the learning curve. I do know that there's quite a few of them that, all of them, pretty much wanted more collars this year. So that tells me, and all of them, one of the questions was on peace of mind, which you can't really measure quantitatively, but when you can see where every one of your cattle are all the time, that definitely helps your peace of mind when you're a rancher.
Yeah.
So,
And if you see them all balled up, something's wrong. That's not common. And we're just figuring out how to use this new tool. And we put them on some heifer calves this winter for winter grazing. And Gallagher's recommendation for the smallest animal that you can put that on is 400 pounds. And so I put them on some heifer calves, and then I had 4 bull calves that I put them on, and they work great. You can keep an eye on them and see when I had some get out, and there's something to be said for having that peace of mind of knowing where they're at and what they're doing.
it's an extremely powerful tool. Jim?
On those yearling cattle and the calves, as they grow, yeah, run in and shoot them and just.
Yeah, when we put them on a little bit looser than we normally would, just because they're younger animals that are growing. Granted, they're not growing at a real high rate in the winter on pasture, but they are growing. They're still on pasture now, and we're going to bring them in here probably a week or two and get ready for breeding. But we'll pull the collars then.
They're looking at, I know Halter's looking at an expandable type fabric to use. But yeah, those guys that had yearlings did have to bring them in and adjust them.
It's amazing for the riparian areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was telling Pat, I remember the visual sticks in my mind going out there and checking the pasture, and it was grazed pretty hard right up to about 10 feet from the bank, and then it was untouched, and it was pretty impressive. I wish I had photos of that, and I don't, but.
And some of the guys in bigger pastures too have found some unrealized potential where they could, places that cattle really didn't graze before, and they could just make them go up there and graze it. So it's, yeah, just some unrealized potential up in the uplands that they could use corners and whatever, as long as it totally depends on water, but where they could do that, it worked well for them.
If the trajectory kind of keeps going, do you foresee eliminating interior fences? That maybe not applicable to your spot, but is that a thing that, just thinking of broader sort of ecological benefits for that kind of stuff, maybe that's even a maintenance decrease?
Absolutely. If it's a fence, you got to maintain it, and it's less maintenance, and then it's less conflict with the wildlife too. The pronghorn and the elk are tearing fences, and
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
some of them are already talking about eliminating interior fences.
some folks are. So I know that those are big consequential decisions, right? Do you think
Right.
do you worry about your operation becoming dependent?
dependent on the collars.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
things go well, then you take out all your interior fences and you're locked into this. Does that give you heartburn a little?
I don't know that we would remove many fences unless they were in complete disrepair. That
Yeah.
Yeah, and some people talked about just taking the wires off of them and leaving the posts just in case.
Well, that's not bad idea.
But
Yeah.
for us, the big opportunity was being able to graze our neighbors' ground that they don't want interior fences. And I'm in desperate need of more pasture. And if I could ration their pasture out and pay them for it, and I don't have to, I can draw exclusion areas where they can't rub on the pivot, or they don't have access to
Yeah.
close to a house or
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's so much easier with collars than trying to do it with polywire.
But you'd have to be within range of the base station, within a somewhat of it, so you couldn't, if someone has grass a mile or two from you, that they're offering or want you to help with, it wouldn't work unless you were within a
Yeah,
distance to the
it
base.
depends on the terrain, but our base station, they claim it's almost I want to say a 5 mile radius. It's a pretty
Okay.
good, and right now on our home place, we're operating with one. We've got 2 base stations, but Gallagher tells me I only need one and it would cover everything. And we've had good luck with that. So it is pretty impressive what it'll cover if you're on relatively flat ground.
Yeah,
And Mark Boyd has the cellular,
the cellular stuff,
So-
so then he has more flexibility.
if there's cell service.
Yeah, yeah, I was wondering in the case of groups or ranches next to each other, all of a sudden they start cooperating in a way of moving cattle around and doing the types of things you're talking.
Yeah.
Did you leave your base station Big Hole for the winter?
We did. I removed the battery and took the battery home just so it wasn't subject to the elements and everything and temperatures. But in theory, all I gotta do is plug the battery in and away we go in the springtime. Probably let it charge for a few days.
So is the reason these collars were so big and heavy just because of the batteries?
I assume so, yes. Now, we've had some that are warranty collars or that either the buckles break or we've had some where we've got a feedlot and I had to put some cattle into the feedlot for a short time and they had collars on. First thing they do is they go right to the feed bunk and they bang that collar against the concrete feed bunk and it shatters the solar panel. So I had to send some back and they replaced them under warranty. But they still work. It's just the solar panel looked like it didn't, but it worked.
So if your cow herd has all the same collars, we talked about this, I think, at the Christmas party, but can you let the young ones go forward first? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah.
Just certain cows you can.
Yeah, I can select those cows and make them a separate herd and they've got a separate paddock.
Okay.
And maybe that paddock is bigger than the older cows. They share the same waterer and most of the same area. It's just they get to creek feed out ahead.
Yeah.
What was your calf weight? Was that one of your goals, is to have better calf weight?
Yeah, this year it was hard to tell because this year was the first year that we were on our new calving date. We used to calve in February and we pushed it to April 1. And so there's a big difference there. But this year will be year number 2. And we'll see if we can make improvement on that.
Right.
This is cool.
Yeah, super. Thank you all.
Welcome.
Thanks all for coming. See you next month.